So, good evening. This is now our theoretical video about this whole thing here, what happened, and it should be a short recap first of what I did on Saturday for those viewers who don't want to watch the entire video. We started out, I think it was on Thursday, with replacing the tensioner. And I made a video about the possible failures in the tensioner or why the tensioner failed, and I showed you the scoring on the pin. And this is now the counterpart, that is the actual tensioner rail, and that is that round piece where the plunger actually sits against or forces against. And I went in there with my camera, which is not that great, but you can see there is no scoring here whatsoever. I looked at this too, and I touched it with my fingers. There's absolutely no marks on there. What looks like it is the reflection of it, but the marks were straight down, and these are not. So this is pretty straight. No worries here. And now let me just show you real quick the picture, if I find it, of the actual Mercedes-Benz plunger, which does not have the hardened part or that reddish part that Fabi tensioner has sitting against that piece here, and this is your tensioner rail. So I got a pretty good picture of it. I also checked all the linings, all of the guide rails and everything, and they're in a good condition. You can see this. They still have not reached that more dark reddish brown color what you see when people say, oh, they need to be replaced. They're still almost in the virgin stage, and so that's why I haven't replaced them yet. Now let me just see what we got here with the timing chain. Well, let me just leave this here up. The timing chain, let me just see here. This is this picture. Let me pull that up. Timing chain? No. Oil pump. Next one. This one, yeah. So what I did yesterday is I checked out the old timing chain because I had more slack in it. And as you can see, is I pulled in the new one, which is an Ivis, which I got from Kent Bergsma. I think the whole set was $150, $160. The Ivis chains are the ones Mercedes-Benz uses. They're charging $110 to $120 for their chain. Ivis charges $90, so the price difference is not very big. So the quality is probably equal. So I pulled it in. I got it all around, and like I said, is I took the rocker arms out of the right camshaft head assembly, which made that easier to turn this one here over without getting a backlash, and that worked out quite fine. Then the timing marks for the top dead center on the idler bearing, not idler bearing, on the damper or balancer was at 0. Our distributor, which comes out of this wheel here, or this sprocket, was at 0, and this one was lined up exactly. And then we have here, I would guess, somewhere between 3 to 5 degree offset. Now, when you read the Mercedes-Benz manuals, you can see how many I got open. I opened all of them up. Somewhere in here, and of course now I forgot which one it was. In these countless ones, we're going to go through this here later. Each sprocket is 18 degrees on the, or each chain part is 18 degrees, which means if I have a 3 to 5 degree offset on this cam, we have not jumped the tooth. That means that is the slack I got in here, which will be fully taken up with the oil tensioner, with the tensioner. And on this system here, now that 3 to 5 degrees indicates the following, and that I'm pretty sure about. The sprockets, the two camshaft sprockets, have never been replaced. Neither has this sprocket here in the center, which what does that actually drive? That's a good question. I don't think that drives anything. That's just a guide sprocket, basically. This sprocket here for the SLS pump, hydraulic pump, and the distributor has never been changed, and this is of course the main crankshaft sprocket, the small one. And each one of these sprockets is basically worn out. Now my engine has 331,000 miles on it. That is 534,000 kilometers. And when I took off the two sprockets on each cam, I looked at the woodruff keys, number 14. Each one has a woodruff key, and I cannot get them out. Mercedes-Benz has offset keys, and now this is what I wanted to show you here. The question is which, please forgive me, I'm not very organized, but there's a lot of stuff to it here. I think here it comes. The alignment, and I think here this is the manual. Yeah, it shows you on how they're put together. And I don't know if that was now the manual where it shows us the woodruff keys. The alignments, this is 511 is the checking hydraulic valves, hydraulic compensating, return sprocket. I looked through all of this stuff. For distributor drive, that is another one. This is this thing here. That is an interesting thing to change. Tension rail. Here we go. Now Mercedes-Benz supplies different offset keys. They go 1 degree, 2 degree, 3, 4, and 5 degrees. That's at least what I was told. I have all of them coming, and I have a 3 degree actually here. And you can see this on how they go in. They have an offset either to the left, and if you rotate it, then the offset goes to the right. And with this, you can leave the chain in position. And when you have the rocker arms removed, you can then rotate your camshaft into the position so it lines up with the mark on the bearing housing, and then you insert this, and then you push the sprocket back on, and your timing is back to normal. And they do this to 10 degree crank angle, which is a little bit more than 1/2 of a key element. So, and then what happened yesterday is that stupid 3 degree key fell on the floor, and I couldn't find it. And I did find it after I got the car out of there, and I actually found it when I cleaned up, so I was lucky I was able to find it. But this is basically on how this is corrected. But I can reduce that 5 degree angle I have. This is not the crank angle. This is actually degrees in offset of 360 degrees, which correspond for an approximate correction in the crank angle. I'm not quite sure on how the this would be 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, this is 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, and 5 degrees. I have all 4 of them coming, so I can adjust my camshafts exactly back to the alignment on both sides, and that will take up any slack which might be in there, and that will fix this issue. But the first issue I have is I have to get the old woodruff keys out there, and they have been in there since day one. So they were put in March of 1989. They got 331,000 miles on them, and that's gonna be a challenge to get that out. This is again is your guide rails here, the lower ones here, which you can't really reach. This one here, that is the tensioner one. There was another interesting aspect I found in here with the tensioner. You can see this here, the tensioner, the chain goes around that sprocket and comes around. We went through that the other day. And another thing is what they writing, or what I looked at. See here, this is what they set the ignition to top dead center, number 1 cylinder, markings arrow. If not accurately lined up, check timing 5:2:15. And this was just here what we did. So they're referring you over to these woodruff keys. And the deviations come with wearing off the sprockets. And for me, the question now is, if I just change the 2 camshaft sprockets to new sprockets, they have worn down. All 5 sprockets we have seen here in this picture, this one here, this one here, this one here, this one here, and this one here, they're worn out. They're probably by each of 1 degree, I would say. So this is how we wind up at that 5-degree angle, and that is not the advanced angle, what they call, let me see where I had 15, this crank angle, what they call the crank angle. This is not the crank angle, this is actually degrees is out of 360 degrees. And if you figure 5-degree offset, each one of them contributes 1% error to it, then if I change these 2, I will reduce my error on this camshaft to 3%. If I would change all 5 of them, I can use the straight woodruff keys and everything falls back into place because the chain tension is correct. I also need to get a new liner, number 47, for my rail. That thing has a few score marks on it. 95, 83, and the other one which sits over here, they're good. I went in with the bore scope down there. This was hard to see, but these 2 look good too. This is one here is almost completely white. That hasn't changed color. The other thing is what I also got to think about it, and I asked Mercedes-Benz of what oil they recommend. They told me a 1040 because that oil I got in there, and this is an oil-filled system, oil tensioner, oil pressure tensioner. I have 0 weight 30 in there, synthetic. So I went and I ordered 1040, good old Pennzoil, and that will be here probably on Tuesday. So we're gonna get a more stable and thicker oil flow in the system, and I will get rid of the synthetic oil. So this is the old-fashioned standard Pennzoil, the yellow bottles. I got it from Napa. They had it on sale for $3.99 a quart, and I ordered 10 quarts of it. Or it was a little bit more, maybe $4.27 or $4.50 a quart. So I ordered 10 of them, and I'm going to put this in, and that should give me more pressure in the tensioner and reduce that starting pling noise. You can hear that when I started, because that oil is just too thin, that 0 weight 30, because of the upper limits. So that should fix that issue. That wasn't the cause of the failure, I don't think so. But the same as Mercedes-Benz told me also to use Dexron 3 and to stay away from Dexron 6, because gasket materials and rubber parts and that stuff is not fully compatible. Even if the manufacturer says it is, it probably isn't, and the viscosity is different. And that's the same thing here with the oil tensioners. The synthetic oil has a different viscosity than that standard or the semi-synthetic oil from Pennzoil, what they used to have in there. So that should give I will update you on this if that theory is correct, and then see on how this is going to improve it. So my next thing is now to figure out here is, so I know I'm gonna replace these 2 sprockets, and I have to get at least one of these woodruff keys out of there. I was ultra careful not to do this, not to damage the camshaft, because it goes real easy. This is highly polished material, and there's minimal play in there. You have to really tap these sprockets on, and you don't want to damage anything. You don't want to score it or scratch it or anything. So that's why I was so careful. Even with heat, I'm reluctant to work on it, because that can expand that too far, and then I won't be able to get the sprocket on. Or if I damage it, then I might end up buying a new camshaft. So the question is, should I buy the Mercedes-Benz ones, which are around $250 a piece, or $200 a piece? You're looking somewhere around $450, $500 for those 2. Or should I buy a Fabi Bilstein, Swag, or Miley if I can get it? The Miley, that's at least the common wisdom over in Germany, seems to be the better aftermarket parts or OEM part, OE part manufacturer than the rest of them. And the reason why is because of these other worn out sprockets here, which you can't reach. That means at one point or another I have to rebuild the engine, and my goal would be to go to 400,000 miles. Now I'm at 331,000 miles. The Ibis chain probably is gonna last me 80,000 miles or 100,000 miles. I don't doubt it. The question is only which sprockets, because eventually if I rebuild the engine, all of the stuff has to be bought from Mercedes-Benz, and you're looking at a pretty good price tag. So I don't want to spend $450 now, then to replace then the two sprockets again in 2 years, 3 years, or maybe sooner, whenever we get to 70,000 miles, or whenever I no longer can adjust the timing offsets with the offset woodruff keys. So that's kind of the conclusion right now. So I had to do all of this stuff, which may sound very chaotic. There's more to this than just changing the chain and the rails. I understand when they fail and they can fall in there and they can break and this, that, and the other thing. The problem I'm having is with the high mileage, and this is not a car with 100,000, 150,000 miles with it. It's the first chain that needs to be replaced. On this one here, we need to think about when is this time to rebuild, and how much money am I going to put in now with what quality parts to get to this, to prolong the driving capability now and push the rebuilding date out and mileage out. So the goal would be 400,000 miles, and if I drive 10,000 miles a year, it would take me another 7 years, 6 to 7 years to get there. I probably could do it sooner. We will see, but that would be the goal. Is it going to be 35,000 miles until rebuild? I don't know. That would be about 3.5 years. I'm driving the car almost every day, 10, 15, 20 miles, and it is running fine the way it is. Like I said, this is just now the determination. This has to get fixed to get back to complete normal, to 100%. And then I can check then we have this back in balance, and the whole timing situation has been fixed basically. Then comes the only thing left, and at this point would be the question of the drive plates, or the tension, no, what do they call them? I get confused with all these names. Removal of slide rails, no, that's not. This is all this stuff here we looked at. That's the woodruff keys. Tension rail, no. Return sprocket. Here, the compensate element, here it is. Thrust pieces, thrust plates. Now, when I had the rocker arms out on my right head, or right camshaft, I removed one rocker arm at a time, because that's what they're suggesting, and to remove the thrust piece. So I wrote all of them down, and I can tell you that the thrust pieces I have in there, where's this here? No, this here. I got too many pages, or this one here. My thrust pieces on all 8 valves on the right hand cylinder head are all 5.1. Some of them are worn down to 5.08. That is like 0.02 of a millimeter wear in 32 years and 300,000 or 331,000 miles, over 500,000 kilometers. That is not a lot. So what I suspect is, since all 8 of them on that side had the same, they're all going to be the same on the other, and that means those are still the ones from the manufacturer. These are the original thrust pieces. They have lasted that long, and I either then have to go up to a 4.75 millimeter or 5.45. That's depending on what this test gauge for the hydraulic compensating element is going to tell me. I didn't want to get into this yesterday with all the with the woodruff key and everything else, and the keychain and the timing, and I said I'm going to do this separate. So I'm going to do the timing chain first. I'm going to see that I got to eliminate that offset with the offset keys, fix that, and then we're gonna go on to this here, and then we get the correct thrust pieces in there. Then the engine basically is wrapped up for as much as you can do possibly without taking the heads off or taking the whole engine out and rebuilding it. So that's basically sums this whole thing up in a nutshell. Okay, you have a great evening.